Hello and welcome, sports fans, to the most exciting video you'll ever see. Most exciting for me, maybe not for you, but this is when I finally give my dissertation, my analysis, my retrospective, whatever you want to call it, on the album Don't Forget Me by Maggie Rogers. Now, this was my summer album. I talked about it extensively in my summer favorites video, but I think I really need to dedicate some time to really unpacking this album. I'm going to be talking about the overall story that the lyrics produce, and keep in mind, this is 90 to 100% based on my own delusions. This is not at all confirmed by Miss Rogers herself. I watched a couple of interviews she gave on the album, and she talks about how she made the album, but not like the inner story with it. So I'm here to put the pieces together because I feel like they're all there. We just need someone who cares a lot to put them together. This album is 10 tracks. Side A is the first 5, side B is the second 5, and I'll be doing side A currently. Side B will also be in this video, but I'll probably be wearing a different shirt, maybe seem more or less energetic. It'll be filmed on a different day, is what I'm saying. I only have the patience to do 5 tracks at a time because we are going deep, people. We are scratching past the Earth's crust. We will hit the core of what this album means. A thesis statement I would tag to this album is from the last song on the album, the titular track, Don't Forget Me. It says, "But promise me that when it's time to leave, don't forget me." While this album is giving us a very personal and in-depth view on this relationship, it also has to do with the speaker as a whole. This is an album about when the unmovable object meets the unstoppable force. This is about delaying the inevitable and accepting the fact that this thing was doomed from the start. But it's also all about recognizing the patterns in the speaker's life, in Maggie Rogers' life. How this is something like a reoccurring theme that she's noticing for herself, and she's finally sitting down and realizing that something's got to change. And we start off right away with this change. In the first track, it was Coming All Along. Now, this is a textbook example of what a good opening track to an album is. The second the song starts, we are hit in the face with this clean, sweeping wave of nostalgia. The production just like beats with like freedom and euphoria. And then when the lyrics come in, it gives us this certain sense of almost anxiety. There's a very deep longing in the language that she uses. She opens saying, "See the light stream in the window, call my mother on the phone, say there's knocking in the kitchen of selling my childhood home, and everywhere I look around, it seems we're always saying goodbye, and I don't know just what to do." Here she's shedding her youth. She's challenging the roots she has in this world. We also have this feeling of a new age coming along, of shedding skin and stepping into new earth. She continues in the chorus but saying, "I'm fine but feel I'm breaking through. My world is a honey shade of blue. I'm crying and wish I wasn't hanging on, but it was coming all along." It's knowing that where you are now, you're walking on new earth. I feel like sometimes in our life we don't really know when to put the bookends up, when to say like, okay, that was the old me, this is the new me. And I feel like for me, a lot of times I just feel like I wake up in it, where I realize all at once that I've grown up and that I've been grown for some time and I just didn't realize it, that I'm a whole new person and that I'm actually kind of doing well. But then immediately you're hit with this very intense longing and sadness for the girl you used to be and the person you were before this, because they were as alive as you are now. So it's always tough to know that you can never go back to the way things were. It's this bittersweet feeling that you can't go back, but you're excited to move forward. And she says, "My world is a honey shade of blue." And blue isn't necessarily a sad color. Of course, it's associated with sadness, and it has this certain attitude attached to it. But there is something beautiful about feeling the feeling of blue. She calls it honey. It's glittering and it's sticky and it's gooey and it's warm and it just feels so right and fruitful and magical. And she furthers this idea of beginning a new age later in the song. She says, "And though it's dark out in the distance, it's looking like there might be a new soul. So high, I can't find the moment where it all went wrong, but it was coming all along. And there's still something missing, and it's almost like we're starting at the end of the story. We're stepping into a new world, but we don't know what we're stepping from. And she's creating space for us to get deeper into the story. But I do really like how she starts off this album with a very personal view of where she is now. Because I think it allows us to go back and unpack where she was and who she was with. And what were they doing? We'll find out. And we're about to hear the story. Cut to track 2. On the run, not enough. Oh, but it's so loud. When I give up, I feel love right down to my toes. Immediately, we are hit with production that it sounds like we're going through a tunnel. It sounds like we are going through a whirling, hazy dream, and we're going back in time. And I love the characterization of Maggie Rogers saying that her life as a single person was on the run. She later describes it as being on the hunt, but I just love this idea that you are equally running from something, but running to it as well. Wanting nothing to do with love and feeling as though you don't deserve any ounce of it, but feeling so lonely and wanting to be loved. It's running from and searching for commitment. Then it's being in that state of mind and having it be constant and meeting someone who exhibits the same characteristics, who is equally half in and half out as you. It's this almost intoxicating feeling with them. That's why she calls it drunk. It's feeling like you're getting away with something, feeling like you're doing something that you don't deserve. And it's almost so passionate, and the nature of this romance is so deep that it feels forbidden. She also hits at this new idea, which is a very, very intense part of the rest of the album, of mutual culpability, and feeling that the same idea of you guys both being half in this relationship and half out, like running full steam ahead into a wall. She says, and if you meet me halfway, I'll drive all night. And we were both responsible, and we knew what we were getting into. And it's like meeting someone who is entirely like you, and the relationship fails because they are entirely like you. And it's a very fun perspective, especially when we go into So Sick of Dreaming. She is so sassy, so petty, and so knowingly bitchy in this song. And we discover this internal struggle that she alluded to in Drunk, wanting so badly to be loved, but actively avoiding any sign of it. And looking for it in all the wrong places. Like, she goes out with a terrible guy, and when it doesn't work out, she's like, see? Or she goes out with a fantastic guy, or she's not all the way in it, and then it breaks because of it, and she goes, see? And she's in this cycle of just constantly proving herself right, and especially with this one person. To me, it'll get clearer later in the album, but to me, this person is someone who she's known for a long time. On and off relationship, but never really a full relationship. It's the situationship, but like really intense. There's this fly that is flying around my room, and it's really getting on my nerves. Anyway, so we go into So Sick of Dreaming, where she's stuck in this pattern with herself, but also with this person. And I really think the guy that she's talking about in this song isn't one specific person. I think it's more a composite sketch of guys that she's attracted to. And all the little things up for taking. Oh, it makes me want to sing My Heart's Breaking, because I'm so sick of dreaming. It's feeling so lonely. There ain't no diamond ring you could buy me to take me home, she says in the song. She talks about this guy like he took advantage of her. Like she was this doe-eyed dreamer before she met him, and he just ruined everything. She says, you think you're so cool walking on the water like they're stepping stones, which I think is just a very fun lyric. This is a textbook example of projection, because we talked about mutual culpability, and it's going to get very clear later that she paints herself as this doe-eyed dreamer, this wistful thinker who just wanted to be in love, and this guy, sleazebag, Mr. Talk, came in and ruined everything for her. But she actually did the same thing to him. So I think this song is entirely more about Maggie Rogers, or the speaker, than it is about any man in the entire world. And I will stand by that. Because now we're going into The Kill, which if you listen to no other track from this album, please listen to The Kill. I think it is a beautiful, beautiful indie pop record. Maggie Rogers, Miss Rogers, has said that this is a road trip album. And it's both running from something and running to something all at the same time. Wind in your hair and like going into a new stage of your life. And I feel like we feel it so hard in this song because at the end of the day, all of these songs, but this song specifically, they're just bops. You can sit, you can listen to them, and they're fun. You don't have to listen to probably an hour-long video about how good they are or what the story means. They're just good. Here in this story, we start saying, when all of the years start blending together, I watch them disappear in your eyes. Now, this is me, again, speculating that this is like a long time friendship turned lovers, turned back to friends, turned we don't talk anymore, turned back to friends, back to lovers, back to friends, we don't talk, friends. And it's just that cycle over and over again, where it's like, you'll never be just friends. You'll never be like anybody else. You'll never just be married with kids and live on a farm. Like, the weird liminal space of being in a situationship. This song is an incredibly important piece of the puzzle. And we talked already extensively about mutual culpability. And Maggie Rogers, in every interview she gave, she used that word 900,000 times. So I feel it necessary to do the same. But this is the mutual culpability song off the album. There's also, like, very specific memories and stories about the time they spent together. Remember the days we used to drive upstate and sing indie rock songs in the car. Remember the days we used to ideate about what we would do all our lives. They started planning this half-hearted future together. And it's really the people we love that shape us. Like, this times they get in the car and they listen to music and they talk about, like, what are we going to do when we're older? And she's like, okay, like, I'm be a singer and an old bourbon drinker, and we'd have a band, and you make lives around this person. They are the quintessence of your future. And it's like this lens that you view that avenue of your life in. Like, they are not the entirety of it, but they are the drop of water that made that life possible. And I just think it's really beautiful that the people that we make space for in our lives, they shape it and they mold it. You know, you move places in the world to be with people. You move to be away from them. You move to start a new job and meet new people there. You move to do all sorts of things. And, like, every avenue of your life is dictated by yourself, but also other people. And I just think that's so cool. And we start to mourn the loss of these lives when we aren't with the person that made them possible. And it's this sense of losing someone, but they knew you in a way that only they could know you. And you were known in a way that only a very specific person could. You'll never have that version of yourself back. And again, this supports my friends to lovers theory. But that's, like, not even what the song is about. That's just a little tangent. We get to the chorus. She says, "You were so difficult, irresistible, but I loved you still. You kept my secrets and stole my weaknesses in your white t-shirt. But I couldn't fill the shoes you laid down for me from the girls that came before. I was all the way in, and you were halfway out the door. Oh, I was an animal making my way up the hill, and you were going in for a kill." What a fucking mess. She once again paints herself as the victim of all of this, and how she was, again, swindled by Mr. Talk. But when she repeats the chorus, she flips everything on its head. She says, "I was so difficult and irresistible, but you loved me still. I kept your secrets, stole your weaknesses. You couldn't fill the shoes I laid down." It's reassuring us that they were both in it and out of it all at the same time. They were both fully invested while simultaneously be halfway out the door. But as we saw in Drunk, they met each other halfway as well. And if you meet me halfway, I'll drive all night. It's so Taylor Swift coded. And haters hate to hear it. But it's so true. It's giving everything to a relationship that you know was doomed from the start. She says later, in all of our lives, was it worth it? Or were we just wasting time? Because we were hurting. And I know that you know that I know you best. She met her match. And they broke up because they're too similar. In all of our lives, was it worth it? Like, were we just wasting time? Like, was I just someone you could argue with? Was I just someone you could play house with? Were you that person for me? Did we actually love each other? And it's questioning all the things that she used to know for a fact simply because they're gone. And if they were here, if now was then, spoiler alert, they would talk about it. No, yeah, that's it about the kill. Sorry, I keep leading you on being like, there's going to be more, and then there's not. So I'm going to turn the page and talk about if now was then. Sorry, my nose is so itchy today, and I really don't know why. If now was then, we start standing on the edge of our old corner on Broadway. I passed a couple kids, and oh, it felt like yesterday. And we start in the middle of Miss Rogers' reminiscence, this image of the titular then. Both times they're together and both times they weren't. Later she says, when Anna threw that party, I remember seeing you. It had been a couple years and we locked eyes across the room. They have a long-standing history with each other, both in a relationship and out of a relationship. And again, like, I don't know if you guys can relate. Like, I don't know if you have a person in your life where you're like, I admittedly have only 20 years on this earth, but you feel like you'll just always be in each other's life, good or bad, and it's like this weird dynamic you have with the two of you, but only the two of you have it with each other. Anyway, she says again, and I know you find it funny that I can't seem to let it go. And I think this is such an important moment in our story. I know you find it funny that I'm the one who can't seem to let it go. Especially from this speaker's perspective, they do seem like someone who is constantly like putting on a front, pretending things are okay when they're not, blah, blah, blah. But again, she's taking responsibility here. Up until this point, we've been feeling this like longing to go back, but also contentment with where we are. And here, I feel like we're actively like trying and wishing that things could go back to the way they were, but aggressively pushing forward and pushing through. She says, if now was then, I'd get out of my head. I'd say the things I never said. Oh, the things I'd do if now was then. She can't help but wish things were different, because at the end of the day, she just loves this person, and she enjoys spending time with him, and all that passion and joyfulness and glee are just so still attached to this person, and it's really hard to just let all that go in one foul swoop. Like, boom, done. Years and years and years. When all the years start blending together, I watch them disappear in your eyes, and you know deep down in your soul, it's time to go. See, I told you this is Taylor Swift coded. This is so Maddie Healy Taylor Swift coded. It's having this person who, like, is your sort of, like, twin flame in this life, but you can never be with them because it'll never work out because they're your twin flame. Yeah, it's intense. So those were the first 5 tracks. We're going to jump in with I Still Do, which is a very intense ballad that we need as track 6. So anyway, I'm going to go to sleep now, and you'll see me later. Ladies and gentlemen, I have had one hell of a day, and the only thing that got me through it was knowing I'd be sitting here talking to you guys. So it's good to see you. I'd like to start with a quote, if you will. The more you wait, the more you break. The longer it takes to undo all the knots you've been tying in cherry stems and black barbed wire, too. Now, this is from Maggie Rogers' song, Begging for Rain, from her album Surrender. And I can't believe I haven't put 2 and 2 together yet, but this song specifically, and this lyric, really pertains to this album as a whole, but especially this next song that we're about to delve into. And that song is I Still Do. You string yourself along so it doesn't hurt as actually saying goodbye. You always leave the door open. It's always unlocked. You always have a way for that person to get back into your life. But when you finally say goodbye, that feeling is consuming. It is everything you feel. And I feel like this album is definitely the hazy aftermath. It's like the after boom of this big collapse of her personal foundation. So I'd love to just read the first verse and the first chorus because I think it is so simple and it just lays everything out on the line. Darling, my dear, I know we had a good thing going, but darling, I fear it's time for us to do some growing. And how far can you bend before you break it all away? And how long can you wait? Because love is not a debt you pay. It's not something you can give away. Love is not a final straw, but it's always a reason to risk it all. Oh, it's true. At least the way that I loved you. Oh, and I still do. No notes. Like, in this down-tempo and heartbreakingly confessional song, Maggie Rogers lays it all out on the line. This song comes sort of out of left field on the album. Before we had these, like, fun, upbeat, like, funky numbers that were, like, actually cries for help, but they were at least, like, cloaked in some sort of, like, manic and chaotic production. But here, it's the simplicity that kills me. Like, Darling, My Dear is such an intimate and loving way to address someone. And it feels like these two people are being pulled apart and they're kidding themselves and deluding themselves that they have a choice in the matter. This is them finally letting go and thinking that they were the ones that decided to do so. Throughout the album, she refers to a you. She's always singing to someone. But here, I feel like she's really speaking directly to this person. Like, it's almost like we're walking in on a private moment. Later, she says, and for all of the times we know there was something coming. Well, darling, my dear, I'm worried that we're both just running now. She's not telling us anything we didn't already know, but the way she articulates it here is so beautiful. It's the simplicity of the thing. I really just hang on to the line, at least the way that I loved you. Everything was worth it when you loved someone the way that I loved you. And she's really owning up and admitting to the fact, like, fuck it, I was in love. Like, this is my truth and I'ma speak it. This whole time, we've only really heard Maggie's side of the story. But I feel like to know her side is to know both sides. But at the same time, this is so intensely personal to this one person's perspective. And we see that later on the next song, On and On and On. Oh, that's a to-do list. All right, next with the notes. On and On and On. So here is when we finally get into some, like, territory of this guy, like, actually might not have been the best. Because for this whole time, we've been glorifying this romance that she had with this guy and glorifying, like, their attitudes towards it. But here's the opening line. Started back a year ago. I know my eyes were closed and younger. She says, you were making space for your hunger, but all the time you dedicated, it was just a waste of your anger. Now she's questioning, was I just someone to pass the time? Because it was real for at least a little bit. And, like, I'm going to be so for real with you guys. This song doesn't make much sense to me. Like, especially in the grand scheme of things, like, I can't really, like, piece it together. But here I think we're reckoning with some of the hurt. And obviously that hurt has turned into a little bit of anger, pettiness, sassiness. She says, I played it back a million times and always wished that I was wiser. And at the end of the day, she got in deep with someone who couldn't handle it. Again, like, I don't have many notes on this song, but what I do have are copious amounts of notes on the song Never Going Home. This is our first glimpse into the after territory of after they break up. I feel like in our timeline, like, okay, so they break up, then I feel like she has a moment where she, like, freaks out and her whole world just, like, collapses and she needs to go back to her hometown. And out of it, we get this beautiful road trip album, this tell-all of events. And then she tries to return to her normal existence. She starts with some very specific images. Smooth out the lines of my face in the mirror and think about where I'm gonna go. I put on those old heeled boots. They've been waiting at the bottom of the closet alone. So this is her preparing to go out to a night with her friends, okay? What was supposed to be a pick-me-up turns out to be a impromptu stroll down memory lane. She says, walk in and the world starts turning. I can't help but look for you at the bar. Catch a glimpse of someone with kind eyes dancing, whose jacket's the same color as the seats in your car. She's without him, but she sees signs of him everywhere. Now this fucking blows. But someday, these reminders stop being heartbreaking, and I feel like you start to get this certain sense of gratitude, this thankfulness that you were able to feel all of that, all of those emotions in the first place. It's reliving all of those momentary, fleeting joys that you experienced and how they all turned into like this very stagnant heartbreak. And you're trudging your feet and trying to meet yourself at the other end of it. And all of the things that remind you of this person that used to make you feel so bitter and so alone and so empty, they start to have this sort of sweetness about it. And again, you feel grateful that you had that experience in the first place. And she touches on this. She says, "You kept me waiting, and now I'm never ever going home." And even in spite of everything that she's feeling, she knows she made the right call. And it, like, this experience just, like, confirms it for her. Yes, it hurts, but it also feels like exactly what you're supposed to feel. And it's knowing that you made the right choice. Everything just kind of slots into place. And it doesn't cancel out all the hurt that you feel, but it makes it a lot more easy to take. Next, we're moving into the second to last track on the album, All the Same. And just when you feel like you've seen the light, you're kicked back down. And this to me is lying in your childhood bed and finally coming to terms with the life you have now within the context of the life that you used to lead. You're trying to tap into all that joy and excitement you had about just being alive when you were a kid, and you're just laying in that bed thinking like, what am I now? She's returning to her hometown. I'm projecting a little bit, but I feel like this is her returning to her hometown being stripped down to her support beams. And there's no better place I can think of to get a fresh coat of paint. And when you're trying to make a new life away from someone that was so central in your old life, I feel like the best thing to do and the best place to go is somewhere where it feels like it's distinctly you. And that is your hometown. She starts singing All the Same day by day, and suddenly you look around and find the ground still feels like it's yesterday. The lights are on and nothing's wrong, but still you can't remember when you played the game. And so it goes, time moves slow, until one day you wake up and you realize that what you see is what you know. And still you wish for one more kiss, a moment's bliss from a lover you've always known. Give me a chance to wake up in a faux romance, just knowing that you chose to stay. There's a big, gaping hole that has just been blown out of the center of her life. But life goes on. You're walking around a grocery store and you see people just going about their day, and they know nothing about how deeply hurt and sad you are just living life. And it feels so trivial. Like, life feels pointless at times like these. You're like, what the fuck am I doing going to Kroger on Wednesday to get my $6 sushi when I literally can't get out of bed in the morning? Your life suddenly feels so much smaller and so much more empty when you don't have someone to share it with. And when you're so sure you need to be away from this person, even still, you start bargaining with yourself. Maybe if things were different. If now was then, I'd get out of my head. I'd say the things that I never said. And you think about, like, okay, if we just had this one conversation, everything would fall into place and it would all magically be better. But that's not true. You still crave the familiarity of this person. You crave that feeling of coming home to this person. You crave that completeness. And if the rest of the album was dragging you into your new life, this song feels like a gentle push. I feel like it's addressing all the feelings that we were feeling up until this point, and all the hurt and the sadness and the stagnation of being alone and heartbroken without one of your favorite people in the world. But at the same time, it feels so right, so serene, so peaceful. It feels like you're finally on some sort of right track, and it was coming all along. And now we get the kick drum back in, and we're going into Don't Forget Me. This is the most telling song when analyzing the speaker's attitude towards relationships in general. they're coming to terms with this pattern in their life, this cycle that they can't help but repeat in the context of this one person and this one relationship, but also in the grand scheme of their life. She starts by comparing herself to her friends. My friend Sally's getting married, and to me that sounds so scary. I'm still trying to clean up my side of the street. And my friend Molly's got a guy she swears to God could be your family. Here she tells us that she's not ready to settle down. She's not ready to accept any type of love that could be good and true and long-lasting. Instead, she continues to romanticize this life of an intense love affair. She's obsessed with this idea of the liminal space, the agonizing in-between of the will they, won't they. Will this work out, or will I live the rest of my life with a big gaping hole in my stomach? But that's what she deems love to be. She says, close the door, change the channel. Give me something I can handle. A good lover or someone who's nice to me. Take my money, wreck my Sundays, love me till you're next somebody. Oh, but promise me that when it's time to leave, don't forget me. This is the life she thinks she's supposed to lead. She's the almost girl. She's the girl you think you're gonna fall in love with and get married and have 10 kids with. She's the girl you think is the love of your life until you find the actual one. She's always the one that got away. She's never the one that you end up with. But she's not even certain of this fact. In the bridge, she says, maybe I'm dead wrong. Maybe I was bitter from the winter all along. Maybe there's a stranger standing, holding out for love, just waiting on the next street, just for me. There she is. There is our doe-eyed dreamer. She's still there. But believing in this type of love and not having it and living away from it is harder than just not believing in it, pretending it doesn't exist. So for now, every time I try just a little, promise me I'll meet in the middle and always find my way back to my feet. And promise me that when it's time to leave, don't forget me. What I thought started as an album dedicated to untangling all the knots that she made with this one person, in reality, she's addressing this cycle in her life of getting really wrapped up in the idea of someone, the idea of this romance, romanticizing their futures together. And I just think it's such a beautiful album. I think on the one hand, the songs are great, the writing is fantastic. I think it's great if you want to listen to it just for fun. But I think it's also so raw and so revealing. Even if this whole thing was made up and Maggie Rogers herself doesn't relate to it at all, I relate to it. And it means so much to me that someone sat down and wrote these words in this order and made something that makes me think that she's living in my walls and watching my every move. I feel seen, I feel heard, and I hope you guys will go out and give this album a listen and tell me your thoughts. Tell me what you think. Comment down below your favorite song. Comment down below if you think I'm a fucking nutcase and none of this is true. I'd love to hear it. Also, comment down below if you like this video and if you want more of this sort. And comment down below albums you think I'd enjoy, because I'm not doing too hot on making my October playlist. Anyway, I hope you guys have a phenomenal day. Bye.